complaining about lack of recording. All right, guys, welcome to the Centre Bounce. Today we're talking Supercoach with a very special guest. Stay tuned. Big J, we've got a very special person on right there, the legend.
I don't know
Thanks for
about
coming
that.
on, Chris.
Just like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm happy. How you doing,
Thanks,
Chris?
lads.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, mate. Been the start of the preseason is today, so you know it's been. I have been counting down the days. I'm not going to lie.
Obviously,
what about you, lads?
I'm doing all right. You doing all right, Joe?
Mate, my team just won a game of football. I've been waiting a long time to see Essendon win a game of football, and I watched it today. In the my eyes were gifted this. I am very happy, and of course, I'm even happier. We've got Chris from Supercoach Insider on board. How could I not be happy, man? How could I not be happy?
1-0 for the season so far. You know,
Blow the siren.
It's coming home. It's coming home. Don't worry.
It was interesting because it was a bit of a second
We've got Brad,
half.
bro. We've got Brad on board.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Bit
true.
of a second half comebape. They were really struggling in the first half, and then a few of the rookies kind of jumped on and then went gangbusters against Gold Coast. So, yeah,
Yeah,
be
I noticed that
some
they didn't really take it. There was a big wind, I think, and they didn't take advantage in the first quarter. And then Gold Coast kicked away in the second. I didn't see the second half, unfortunately, so I've still to do that. But congratulations, mate. That's good. You spoiled the result for me, so thanks very much.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm sure Collingwood isn't the biggest fan of Essendon, so I had to get it in there before you know, to sort of soften the blow for you when you end up watching the game.
Fair enough. They're not as bad as Carlton. It's fine.
Victorious with Tipper. Yeah, fair enough.
How much did you
But
win
you
by?
play them twice, so that counts as 2 wins for the year, yeah?
Yeah, well, at least. Yeah, usually.
5 points in the end, I think.
Oh, wow. So it's close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, won by 5 points in the end. So, look, it wasn't an amazing performance, but it was a close hit out. Not like Geelong, who got nothing out of smashing Hawthorn. We probably got something out of it.
As a Collingwood supporter, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, mate. Winning's winning. All right. You can still roll into work tomorrow with a big smile on your face and pay out absolutely everybody. So it's fine.
You wouldn't be able to say that as a Carlton fan this year, would you? Like last year, Carlton fans wouldn't have been saying that. They'd be like, "Oh, we want to win by a lot. That's not fair."
My boss is a mad Carlton fan, and I absolutely tore him to shreds in the last 8 rounds. They lost 6 out of the last 8. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Was, unfortunate for him.
It's like 0.1% average.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is what it is.
When they dropped that Adelaide game, I knew, oh no, they've choked it. They've choked the season away. Oh no.
I guess before we kind of get started, Chris, do you want to explain like who you are? What do you do? Obviously, we know which team you go for. Just for the people who haven't kind of watched your stuff before.
Yeah. So obviously Chris here from Supercoach Insider. Me and a couple of mates have been doing podcasting and YouTube, and we did Twitch for a little bit, which was a bit strange. For now, this is our 5th year, so we've been going on for quite a while now. I mean, we all just explained to you guys before how it all started. Really, was we were just 2 lads that were just chatting Supercoach in all of our pretty much time when we spent together. So we're like, well, instead of doing that, why don't we just hit the record button and chat Supercoach and have a bit of fun with it? And that's theme is sort of carried us through. You probably notice that when we're doing things, we like to have a drink or two or whatever, just like how you would just normally catch up. And that's been our style. Sometimes it's put us in a bit of hot water at times. But overall, it's just about having fun and catch up with mates, which is really all Supercoach really is it just about having fun with your mates, right? That's at the core of it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
been awesome and a great ride, and we look forward to every week. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Joe and I have definitely found that as well. Coming from people who just chat, footy all the time to, hey, come on the show, and then obviously the position we're in now. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many groups out there now that chat a lot. A lot of Discords and Patreons, and Dr. Supercoach has their Slack, and then Elites have Discord, and the FTTV crew have their Discord as well. Supercoach Coach had their Patreon. There's Big Footy. There's so many different places you can go to if you're interested in Supercoach and just chat with other people that are like-minded. I try to avoid the Facebook groups because that seems to be where the conversation get a bit skewed.
Yeah. When half the comments are like team, it's just like, what do you want me to do?
It's like, this isn't constructive at all. I'm gonna bow out of this conversation, champ, and then you leave.
Yeah,
you got to leave with a champ though. You can't leave elsewhere.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's like everywhere the light touches. Everywhere the light touches is good. Supercoach conversations. What's that shadow bit over there? That's Facebook. You should never go there. That's never go to Facebook for Supercoach content.
Oh, man.
TikTok seems to be going well. I don't know if you guys are on the TikTok bandwagon, but I think that's how a lot of the newer generation are absorbing information these days. These little short clips, 2-3 minutes. It's going absolute amazing. So we've had little clips that we basically just chopped up from our podcast and then thrown onto TikTok, and they've had 25,000 views. And you're just like, well, how does that work? But yeah, all the kids just love the TikTok, and just you can't tell which one's going to go viral, but they just do. And yeah, so it's been this off season's actually been, we have put in a lot of work, and I noticed that you guys have as well, but it seems to be a lot more content this off season than there has been for probably the last 3 or 4, which is surprising. And it's awesome as someone who loves Supercoach to see so much more content out there, and other people killing it in what you love. And then you can absorb, I don't know about you guys, how you guys get your information, but basically how I do it is I take all the information from everyone and all their opinions, and then I formulate my own, look at the stats, and then go, okay, this is how I think about that situation. So I generally form very strong opinions. I'm kind of known for that, which unfortunately puts me in a really bad position with my ego. And I'm trying to take that out of my Supercoach trading and the way that I do that. But sometimes it's good, and it's great when you have a win, when you pick some like really unique pod like Witherden, and then he just completely ruins your season. So
I think there's a Dylan Moore question coming up some way down the listing today as well.
Absolutely.
I guess kind of being like, you'd almost consider you guys to be like one of the OGs, right? If you've been around for 4, 5, 6 years now, how have you kind of seen the landscape across YouTube, but just Supercoach in general, kind of changed content wise and in general?
Huge difference. So it started out when we started, the guys that actually motivated us to start were another podcast crew. I don't know if you guys remember these guys, and shout out, like, if you guys remember these guys, they were called the Supercoach Station, and they weren't that great at Supercoach, but they just had a lot of fun with it. And I love their content. I was religiously listening to. I'd be the guy that was annoying them, like messaging them, being like, "When's the new episode? When's the new episode? When's the new?" Like, because I just love their content so much. That was me, unfortunately. So it very much started in a very podcast land, and I think everyone sort of had this idea of developing a brand through podcasting and leveraging off that. What people sort of gradually realized over time was that it's really hard to make money from podcasting. Because unless you can leverage that against something else, or affiliate marketing, or sell products, or whatever it may be, you're only doing that to build a brand. The thing with the AFL and Supercoach in general is there's just not enough of a user base. I'm talking, if you weigh that up against, say, NBA fantasy or NFL or fantasy EPL or something like that, you've got millions and millions and millions of people that play that. I don't even know what the user base is in EPL, but I know I'm ranked like 5 millionth. So, so you've got, then you can leverage things like your podcast numbers and views and listens to get sponsorships, etc. But it's a lot harder in our space because we deal with a smaller thing. So what I have noticed, the biggest positive change has been that big shift towards YouTube and video content. In that it can reward creators with a little bit of money. It's not obviously a ton of money, but you can. And what we've seen from that is even higher views, higher streams, because we're accessing a different audience. The sponsors are starting to turn around. We're starting to get paid for work and paid for content that we never otherwise would have. And so that seems to be the big trend. Even Dr. Supercoach this year have decided to start with their YouTube and branding out. They've launched their website. They're leveraging off their large Facebook and media presence. And of course, it's hugely successful podcast. So, very much changed from when we started, where it was a few guys that podcasted who made absolutely no money out of it. And there was no interest in that. And there would be people that would come in for a season or two and then just completely evaporate, to guys that are doing it consistently for years and years and years and years and developing really loyal Patreons or guys that would support their channel and developing actual businesses out of it. So very different market to what it was, I think, probably 5 to 7 years ago. I think Supercoach Coast started about 10 years ago, I want to say. I think was they probably the original Supercoach content creators. And then everyone sort of spawned from that. So, that's sort of how what inspired us anyway. That sort of like lively fun. They'd laugh on stream and carry on and make the odd inappropriate jokes. And that's sort of where we were like, that's what we do. Like, I want to listen to that. I want to have fun with guys like that. And so, whereas others were a little bit blander. And it's hard to sometimes get that balance. And that's one thing I really like about you guys, is that it just seems like you two mates just get on the mic and just have some fun with it. I love the Rory Laird pod the other day where Joe absolutely went mental because, Rory Laird's only 11% of teams and he just had to let everybody know about it. I think it worked because he's up to like 12.5%, 13%. So.
I know, right? The stats come in, Joe gets excited. That's it. So, it works out all right. I think I always used to remember like Shorty kind of being one of the OGs or being one of the guys that you used to. I think he's almost at 1,000 videos now. Like, it's bonkers how long he's been doing Supercoach for. And then you guys, and then George a little bit, and then obviously us doing our own thing. So, pioneers almost.
It's awesome. Right? There it goes. Comes along quick, that's for sure.
Yeah, and the viewership is still going really strong. It's not like, I think also what's so great about Supercoach is a lot of people are doing like what you were doing in terms of watching as much as they can, trying to collate all this information from everywhere and trying to come up with their own informed decision. So you see a lot of, Supercoach content creators coming up, but they're not really eating into each other's sort of like share of the market, so to speak. It's just enriching the community in general. And it's sort of also allowing more people to find the game a lot more accessible. There's so much more information out there, and with different styles of presenting the information, that you can find something and, really resonate with a channel and just go from there. And all of a sudden, and we all reference each other, we all mention each other, we all, shout each other out. It just feels like a great community. I'm not sure if that sort of thing is present in other sort of in other games.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, in that I think it was very competitive a while ago. I think there was each group and, they sort of shunned each other's group and blah, blah. And that is definitely not the case anymore. As testament to that, we have personal relationships with a lot of the other podcasting groups, and we encourage it as much as possible. Cross pods, shouting out, or if you find a stat that was interesting on a certain podcast, you say, I heard on, or, you let them know, the public know that that's where you found that information from. All of that stuff is really awesome. And it brings because you got to remember who's listening to your podcast or who's listening to your video, people that would be listening to those videos as well. So, having a go is not going to help you in any sort of situation. So it only helps you if you do help out your fellow podcaster and content creator. And I think that is an absolute massive and big plus for the Supercoach community. I'm not so sure. I don't dabble too much in the fantasy side of things. Like, I know outside of Coaches Panel, obviously, who do a variety of the types of platforms. I'm not sure how that is over in fantasy, but definitely with Supercoach, absolutely, all the groups are really supportive of each other.
Yeah, and that's something as well that I think we're really big advocates of, just promoting the game itself. Like, we love fantasy football, we love Supercoach, so no rivalries or anything like that, but just kind of getting more people involved is better for everybody. Means more viewers, but also means the games keep going as well. So yeah, it's worked out quite nice for us that way.
Nice. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And it means that the game gives us a lot more of what we're hoping to see from it. They try and give us some nice positive changes to keep the game spicy and keep bringing more people in. We got 36 trades, man, and still we got five boosts. Like, is this not a dream come true? Like, is there a better time to get into Super? Also, part of having the game get bigger and having a lot more exposure, a lot more players now coming in, and obviously the Herald Sun wants to keep as many players as they can throughout the whole season. They've given us, they've given us gifts, depending on who you're talking to. We've got 36 trades and 5 boosts. Like, Mike, is there a better time to get into Supercoach?
So I'll answer this in 2 parts. I think first and foremost, I think the guys that run Supercoach, Al Patton, Dan Batten, and Tim Michelle. Is it Mitchell? Mitchell? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sure he'll kill me for that. I think they've done a fantastic job. I think that their knowledge of Supercoach has increased tenfold over the years. And I think that the way that they represent their content now compared to what it was even 2, 3, 4 years ago is on a different level. So I will say that. And they are doing the right thing from a user base in terms of what Extra Trades does is essentially keeps in the average Joe for longer, because trading is probably the most exciting part of the game, right? Like nailing a trade, or who cares if it doesn't hit, just trade them out, but I would have to say that I am much more of an advocate for less trades. Now, the part of the reason for that is I actually started with Dream Team. So back in the day, I'm not sure when you guys started on your fantasy AFL journey, but I started with AFL Dream Team, which was before AFL Fantasy. And it was very similar to Supercoach, other than the fact that the scoring system was the AFL Fantasy scoring system. And limited trade format. And that those first 2 years, I finished top 1,000 both times. And I was like, well, this is too easy. Let's try something harder. And mates of mine were doing Supercoach, and I was like, all right, well, let's do that. And then I think the first year I did Supercoach, I just joined at the back end of the year, like in the last third, just to try and work out the scoring. And then the first year I did Supercoach, I was 400th. So I sort of just transferred my knowledge over from fantasy to that. But I like the limited trade format because it is a specific structure. As you add more trades, it completely opens up all these different types of ways to win the game. Because before it was basically just guns and rookies, right? Like you had to have your 11 or 12 guns and your rookies to make your money, so you can make enough cash to upgrade to your premiums, and then you're done, right? And you do that with 5 trades left in hand in the bank at the end of the season, so that you can account for injuries, and then you're good to go. Like a very, very simple approach to Supercoach. And now with the 36 trades and the boost, there's like 17 different ways to play the game. The mid-price strategy is going bananas. Ask Abdul, he'll tell you anything. And, it's not just linked to that classic guns and rookie strategy. So I suppose what I'm complaining about is the fact that I'm familiar with, X, and I like X. And that doesn't necessarily comply with what I potentially like. But I do think it's overall good for the game. And I'm looking forward to trying and applying my trade at different tactics and strategies now that I would otherwise never have done. So advice that I would have given people last year is completely redundant this year, because the game has completely changed, in my opinion. So I think people just starting out, it's exciting, and there's a lot to happen, and it's not all the way gone to say 2 trades a week like fantasy. It still is a limited trade format, but it's somewhere in between now, and I think that that's going to really capture a lot more of the audience. So props to them for keeping it on. And I do look forward to this year more than I thought I would. So yeah.
I've spoken to a few different content creators and had people on the show this year talking about a similar situation like that. were you one of the people last year that took a while to kind of adapt to the new situation, or did you kind of take it on and make a big advantage of it? Because I know a lot of the fantasy take TV guys weren't very aggressive with their trades early. A few other people weren't, but then someone like a me and Joe who kind of saw what was happening with the boosts, for example, and where the opportunities were, used them quite aggressively. Was that kind of you, or were you still taking 2021 thoughts into 2022?
No, I was definitely aggressive with my trading. I basically used the boost almost every round until I didn't have any. I think I used them over the upgrade round. So that was my plan. It's probably going to be my same plan this year, outside of the fact that maybe I might use one earlier in rounds 1, 2, or 3 if I need a lot more corrections. But I had a really solid starting team last year, and week 2 I was ranked 67th. So I was pretty comfortable with my team. Like, I didn't really have any holes. And so I also started with 13 premiums. And you could last year because you had guys like Cripps at 450k that, and then you had, and then we had also, Zeeble and,
Cogs,
Stuart, Sinclair.
All of
these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Where I fell down was I didn't upgrade the right pathway. So I should have gone into the defenders as they were raising. So guys like early on, Sicily wasn't scoring hot, like crazy hot. Like, he was going all right, but like peppering around that 100 mark, not going anything crazy. And I was like, I'm not going to pay 500 grand for him now when I can just get him later. And then he just kept going like this. And I'm like, and then it was 600k. And I'm like, well, I can't get him for 600k now. So, and like Sinclair, I never got on because I was like, nah, his role's going to change when I think someone was out, and they were going to force him into a different role. And then he killed me. Like, again, so this is what I mean about my ego, is that I tend to get this fixation on an idea, and I don't take in other stimulus sometimes in order to affect my trading pattern, when what I should do is just look at the raw data and make a decision based on that. Which is, that's my downfall sometimes. So it ended up, I had this awesome start to the season. I was top 1,000 through the entire first 15 weeks. And then I just got through the buys. I copped everything. So I traded out English and then traded him back in. I traded out Cogs and then traded him back in. I traded in Bailey Smith in the week he got suspended. I traded in Tom Stewart so I traded in Witherden when he was going like 130 a week. And I was like, all right, I can trade him or Stewart. Stewart goes 174 that week. And Witherden went like 80 or something, and then just continued to just dive. Like complete. And then by the time I got Stewart was the same week that he got KO'd. I held him though, like obviously over that time. He comes back and then gets suspended, but then gets a 160. So I hold him over that time for 4 weeks. Like, I had just the worst after the buys here. Oh, I also traded Dacos to Stewart. That's how I got there. Yeah. And then Dacos went on a 112.9 round average. Like, I just had the worst luck on the back end last year. And I ended up finishing about, I think, mid-2000s. So I didn't completely drift into nothingness, but from what could have been to just getting hit by everything on the way through. Yeah, it was rough to take. But I still agree that boosts now, I think it's a race. I think it's an absolute that's to make your cash faster so that you can upgrade to your premiums quicker. You go 2 down, 1 up, or you can go in some weeks you might go sideways, one that's not working for you, and then down up, so you don't lose your upgrade path. And I think that's important. Your upgrade cadence still needs to be maintained, especially in that, let's say 5 to round 10. You need to continually adding premiums every single week, and that allows it to do it even if you get an injury or something else happens in your team that you need to fix up or manage. So I do love the boost. I do like that the boosts are limited. Yeah. Like, if you had unlimited boosts and you could just burn through your trades every week for whatever, then that's not good. I think I'm leaning towards saving 1 boost for the buys, because I didn't do that last year. I got burned when I
round
needed
15
to in the last round. I got burned in the last round because I had injuries that I had to manage, and then people got suspended. It never happens the way you want to over the buys. You're planning out weeks in advance, and you're like, I got this. Dude, round 15, that's my round. I got this. I've got it covered. And then someone gets suspended, someone else gets injured. Your rookies dropped the night or the Thursday night, and then you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? So,
I always
think having one
exactly.
boost for buys. Yeah.
Yeah, I always seem to navigate like that last buy quite well because I tend to bring in like some mid-season draft players, and you kind of know that hey, they might be playing. You know, they brought them in for a reason. So I think I jumped on Blank and someone else like around that time, and they only have to play a couple of games, right? And they've made their spot for you. Avoid the donuts that way.
I think, and it's good that they've added that in the AFL because I think it's awesome that state league players get a chance halfway through an AFL season, especially when some lists just get absolutely smacked with injuries. So, and there's spots, there's available positions for these guys to jump in and be available round one. The problem that happened last year, I know a lot of people, we sort of ran out of rookies. And then you start trading in guys that are on their first game, and you're like, well, I have to because there's no one on the bubble. You're like, what else am I going to do? You bring in Sam Durden, he goes down. Like, what is happening with this? So it was the buys last year were a bit of a minefield, and I mean that all adds to the furore of the fun and walking down Monday morning going, oh, how'd you guys go? You know, so all fun in games, I guess.
And the Greg Clark shenanigans. The Greg Clark, I actually brought Greg Clark in right off the bat. His first game, I saw him. He was named. I brought him in, and I had the emergency on him, and he turned up for me. He turned up for me. I was so proud of my boy.
Well, did you manage to get him on field though? Because I couldn't get him on field, so I was like, well, it's great having this E. How am I supposed to get those points on field now?
I managed to get those points on field. I can't remember exactly how, but I did, and it wasn't anything crazy. But speaking of the buys, we've got 4 of them this year now. How much does that change things moving into compared to last year?
It makes things a hell of a lot easier. And the reason for that is, so usually around the buys, what you do and what everyone should be planning on doing is after that first buy, you start trading in premiums from that buy to cover you in the later buys. Now, you've got 2 options to do that, which means you've got 6 trades minimum and 4 if you've got a boost to be able to do that over 2 weeks. And that second week, it shouldn't impact you at all. So really, the second week's just a buffer. If whatever premiums you weren't able to afford in that first week, you can now get in that second week. And you've obviously got another 2 teams to pick from. Not that Gold Coast and Geelong really have much to trade into anyway, but I'm thinking if Noah Anderson pops off or you need a ruckman and Witts is available or something like that, you don't have Stewart. These are guys that you want to sort of jump on at that time. If you do have them, it does help you obviously navigate those buys because you already do have those guys as premiums in the other buy rounds. But I'm definitely of the opinion that first buy rounds, the first buy rounds that go through, we're probably going to be trading in a lot of guys out of those buy rounds. So maybe starting a little bit shallower if you can with around 12 guys, because you might get 4 or 5 of them over those first 2 weeks. You also don't probably need to trade down so much because we've got the opportunity of the extra trade. So used to be, you get a war chest over those coming weeks before the buys, bank a couple of $100,000 or $300,000 or whatever it might be, and then trade up with the extra trades and the trade boost. You could potentially hold one of those and then use that trade boost to bank that cash that week, which gives you a little bit more flexibility in your teams and a little bit more time building up to it. So it does make the buy rounds a lot easier to navigate, especially being that second. That Gold Coast Geelong's the second game, and not a lot of people are really going with these guys. I mean, outside of really, I do see Witts in a few teams, but not many. I think that will decrease as we get closer to the season. And then Stewart, he's not in as many teams as I thought he would be, but that's not surprising considering there's 4 other options that are probably equally as good all around the same price. So they're all kind of spread out, and it's literally personal preference.
Flanders.
Like you could. So it's interesting. So I mean, I like obviously Took as well, but I wouldn't start with him now. So there's another one that you could get over those buys. And he's one that probably might even start slow and lower his price because of the hamstring injury. So who knows what sort of time on ground or CBAs that he has early in the season, but he should trend up towards that 80% mark where we've seen over the last few years.
We brought up the other day that it almost gives you an extra trade boost as well, kind of having another week to, two teams that don't really matter, like you're saying, as much in there, extra trade boost to either corrections or even I think MSD's around that point in time as well. So you almost get a free shot at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So not as hard as it was last year. They've made it a bit easier with best 18 as well. So you can just stack your field with whatever, and everyone should be running with like a really, really good score in round. What is it? That's round 13.
Yeah.
Like that is going to be a very competitive round for the number one spot that week. So yeah, everyone should be rolling a really, really good score.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that players are going to face this year? We've got more trades. We've still got the boosts. We've got an extra week in the bye, so that's also beneficial to players. So these are all things that are for are positive. But what do you reckon is the biggest challenge?
Absolutely, the sub rule, 100%. Yeah, sub rule's going to impact people because, especially people who are very traditional in their way of playing Supercoach, the guns and rookies approach is going to bite some people, I think, this year because the rookies are going to be subs, or they're going to be subbed out, or let's say who's going to get subbed out of a game at 3/4 time? Is that going to be these key forwards? Is it going to be the ruckman? Who's going to be the guy that's going to come on to give that extra run? Does that stunt their growth? Yeah, before you could sort of run the risk of, that sub might be an unused sub, so therefore it might not impact your score, or at least maybe he gets subbed on early. Now he's guaranteed to come on. I've seen subs get used in the last 10 minutes of games and score 5 points. Like, it can get bad. And that will obviously impact your 3-round rolling average, and then you may as well just trade them out that week because you're not holding them for 4 weeks to try and get some money out of them, right? So I think going deeper in your lines is important, and getting guys that are firmly in the 22 is super important. No fringe guys. Guys like Ed Allen, I'm hearing he's a round 1 potential. I think he might be a round 1 potential, but maybe as a sub, or if not, he's the 22nd player, right? So what happens there if you start Ed Allen? You don't want to be playing him on your field for sure. And do you really want to be even riding him on your bench? Like, you got to try and make sure that even the guys on your bench aren't going to be suffer from loss of cash. So, rough. I think that's going to be the hardest part to navigate. We're all probably going to go through it together, but the person who's going to win is going to be the guy that navigates those the best, for sure. I think that's going to differentiate between the good teams and the bad teams this year. Yeah,
I know that with our team review videos, if you've seen those, we've been really pushing grabbing the mature age players, the ones that have established bodies, that kind of thing. They may be returning back from injury, or they're a bit of a lower price, but their ability to play a full game and not get tired is something that's really valuable this year. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Guys that, I even don't I'm not as opposed to say I could pick like Ben King, because at the end of the day, that he's their best forward by an absolute mile. He's not getting subbed. You don't get shorter. Definitely got the ability to throw out a stinker score, but at least he's not a risk of the other things. So there's some evidence to that. I think there's some really good rookies this year, and I think we say this every year at the start of the season, the preseason. We're like, oh, there's no rookies. Who's going to be playing? We can't see it. And then gets to now, and we're like, oh, there's actually plenty of rookies. Look at Constable's come along, and he's playing off halfback, taking kickouts. Like, okay, I'll take that for 123K. Yeah, so exactly. Now the problem with him, of course, is that there's still is that Will Powell obviously coming back from injury, and Lockie Weller's coming back from injury. Connor Butterick, but I don't think he's mid-season, so I think he's a bit of a way. But he probably does start. But how many games does he get? Is he going to be a sub at some point? These are the sort of questions that we need to answer. Hopefully by the end of the preseason, and there's only 2 games now, but one actual game where we'll get actual scores. We're not getting like Supercoach scores from any of these these preseason matches, right? This weekend.
Nah.
So some people are doing all the stats and stuff, and they're popping out some numbers, but there's nothing official on fan footy or anything like we have kind of had in the past. Yeah, I didn't think so, and which makes sense. It's hard. Did you guys watch any of the? Do you watch the Essendon game live, or did you watch it on TV? On Foxtel?
No, I sort of played catch up. I was still at work. I just left work. And then I was letting Big J give me a running commentary as I was in the car. I'm like, "Are we winning? Are we winning?
Nice.
Have we won yet?" He's like, "No, not yet."
Yeah, well, so the dodgy camera work at Metricon Stadium was like something to behold. I was like, this is a professional stadium. Like they have proper like camera systems there. Like, what is going on? Is this a handy cam on the sideline action? Like, okay,
That was
But it
not
is what it is.
Metricon
So-
though. That was not Metricon. I ended up
Well,
like
wasn't it?
clicking afterwards and having a look through. It was some sort of training ground. It was not Metricon, definitely. There was no
I
stands.
thought it was Metricon. Okay, well that makes more sense. I thought it was at Metricon. My bad. Yeah, that makes sense then. But yeah, obviously some of the rural grounds, etc., they're not going to have anywhere for this to happen. So yeah, it is what it is.
I wonder what's going to happen during the Magic round then, when everyone's playing in like bush tracks out in South Australia. You know, someone with their iPhone camera got out. Hey, let me grab my phone. I'm recording the game, everybody.
Well, if it was an official game, like I know that they did this before, where they actually get those big stands like on the side of, and they basically climb up there with the camera, and then it's not too bad, but it's still not at an optimal broadcast view. I feel like I'm playing a game of FIFA, right, and I've got the wrong camera setting on. That's what it feels like, and I'm like, why can't I change it? This needs to be FIFA. So yeah, but it looks weird and looks strange, and so it feels different. But obviously it's still the same footy. I mean, I prefer live games by an absolute mile, but living in Brisbane, I don't get the opportunity to go to as many games as I want, unless I want to go to the Lions, and no one wants to do that. So
don't tell DR that.
No. Well, Ben's a Lions fan, so I cop it off from him. Bless him. He takes me to all the Pies games, like at Pies versus Lions, and unfortunately, he's had the wood over his last few years, which, but they finished fifth, so whatever.
Were you in the state during the hub when they had all the games?
Yeah,
up in Queensland.
Yeah, unbelievable time to be a Queenslander. Yeah, so the Port Carlton game where Robbie Gray kicked the goal after the siren, I was in the pocket behind Robbie Gray, and I was just like, I've never been in a game where that's happened live. And so that was a crazy, awesome experience. And Robbie Gray has been one of my favorite players of all time for ages. And I love nothing more than rubbing in Carlton's faces. Just, kick after the siren. They do love that. But yeah, we got to quite a few games, and it was a great experience. I mean, it was a bit annoying because I don't know if you knew what the rules were, but basically, because of the COVID rules, right? You got a ticket to the ground, but you weren't allowed to walk around during the game at all. You had to sit in your spot the entire time. And you couldn't, like, if you wanted to go get food, you had to go get food, come back to your seat and eat it there. You weren't allowed to just mingle around in areas, go out and have a smoke or have a drink or anything like that. Like, there was literally no socializing outside of where you were sitting. So it's a little bit of a strange atmosphere, and it was very weird to be at these public venues that weren't really public at all. And then, like, where they were situated, like, you'd have a seat here, and then there'd be you weren't allowed to have anyone within 2 seats of you. But you were allowed people in the row in front of you. So you'd have some people sitting like directly in front of you, like you could breathe on them, but you can't have someone sitting to the right of you because that's not COVID safe. It was some strange dynamics that year, and but it was a real privilege, obviously, to be able to go to. Went to heaps of games up here. It was awesome. Of course, Collingwood ended up going to Perth and Adelaide. They don't even come up here. I think they came up here for like 3 games. That was annoying, but whatever. It is what it is.
I'm just glad that Saga's all over, to be honest.
Absolutely,
back to normal times again.
Back to reality.
Clearly, nobody knew. Yeah, nobody knew what to do back then, and I think there are people who are still unsure what to do now, as it pertains to the magic number. Do you think that this different magic number is going to play a bigger role as some people think it will?
Oh, that's a good question. I am of the opinion that there's going to be a few things that all mingle together this year. I saw it again today, and I think that it will happen more throughout the league. So what we saw last year with Geelong, and this is typically what happens with any team that wins a premiership is immediately after teams pick them apart and go, okay, well, how did they do that? How were they the number one clearance team in the competition when they had 8 different guys running through the midfield, right? How did they do that? Well, so, the think tanks get together and they go, well, what we need to have 8 guys running around through midfield together. So these guys, like, say, Oliver, Laird, all the really expensive guys that had really high CBA attendances could potentially drop. So it may look like the magic numbers doing their thing, but really their roles are shifting. They're having less time inside, which is affecting their scoring. And because the magic number is so high, it's going to make their price drop faster as well, which is going to sort of have a double whammy effect. But it's only if those roles are affected. So guys like, say, for example, Stewart or Dawson, I can't see their roles changing. They're not going to get less time behind the ball or less kickouts because of something else that's happening in the league. But I do see this trend of midfielders having less rotations through there and being more multi-positional, playing more, more guys and rotating through there, giving different looks to different oppositions. And I think that's going to be a thing. Outside of probably Gold Coast, who doesn't seem to have cared about anything, and they're still going to run with their big 3 midfielders and then nothing else. I saw today that Davies had like heaps of CBAs because obviously Tuke's not there. But it was basically Raul Anderson and Davies in there the entire time with a couple of chop outs here and there. Like, that's about it. And that's how they run their system. And so that doesn't look to have changed. But so Melbourne obviously have already flagged that. Does that impact Clayton Oliver? Does that impact his starting price? Is it as much to worry about as it might be? I think at the end of the day, you're going to be happy if you've got Clayton or you don't have Clayton anyway. Even if he averages 120, are you really going to be upset about it? Like, probably not. But does it mean that you may have got him, $100,000 cheaper at some point? Sure. But you've got the points that you've banked in that time, so you can't really be too upset.
I guess it comes down to like the availability of talent at a lot of these clubs as well. Like, Melbourne's got a lot of people. Brought in Hunter, they've got a few more guys, Brayshaw, that kind of thing, running through the middle as well. And the dogs a little bit, not as much with Hunter and Dunkley gone. Whereas you're saying like a Gold Coast, who else do they have? They've got Tuke Miller and they're bringing on Anderson and Matt Rowell if he's fit. But
Swallow should retire.
Who else is their house?
Exactly.
Well, they've got guys like Flanders that
Flanders.
I do. He deserves a role inside, but he's not going to get it. And even today, he was showing that he's playing that Isaac Rankin role of last year, where he plays in the high half forward, and then he'll get in around the stoppages, but really he's just pushing forward from that stoppage. He's not getting around the ball in defense or anything like that, and that limits your scoring ability from a Supercoach perspective. I think even with Hunter going to Melbourne, they've said that he's going to play inside there. So you've got Cozzy Pickett inside there now. You've got Lucky Hunter getting some. How much when they say they're going to get these guys inside, like how much is it? Like after the first half today, I think Tanner Bruin it's Bruin or Brun. I never know how to pronounce his name.
Bruin.
He had 87% CBAs. Like, Max Holmes was killing it in that first little part. Are they permanent midfielders, or are they just going to be part of that rotation and get, say, 35, 40%? How does that work at Port? We've got a big issue at Port with these forwards that we want to select, Butters and Rosie. JHF looks like he's going to get a lot of mid-time. You've got Wines, you've got Drew, you've got Boak. What's that split? There's 6 guys right there without even mentioning guys like Mead or Sin that want to get some CBAs through there. This I think it's not necessarily an experiment. I think this is happening. I think there's going to be more rotations, which ultimately could lead to a decrease in midfield scoring for the first time in a long time. Like, it's previously been either Ruckman, and by Ruckman I mean Gawn or Grundy, or top-tier midfielders at the absolute 130 average. Does that drop overall? Do we see a consistent drop? And we have more guys around that 105 to 110, less guys around that 115 to 130. I'm not sure, but that's a theory anyway. It's a working theory, but it's a theory.
Might end up having a lot of value with these forward midfielders like your Taranto Rosie types who come in at a lot cheaper. And then if they still score like a 105, you're getting a lot of value out of them.
And more DPPs too, right? So how many guys? We've got heaps of rucks that are probably going to get DPPs. Guys playing halfback in midfield. Lots more forward midfielders as well. I was interested with Holmes today. So I mean, when he was rotating, he'd be inside or on a wing. So he's still going to be mid, but that could be a lot better than being mid forward. So what happens there? So question marks over him. And it's piqued my interest. I don't know if at his price it's super awkward, but it's something to look at, especially for the next preseason game for sure.
I've got a couple of predictions for some good DPP picks that I reckon will come in. Do you have anyone from the midfield? Like, do you have two names maybe who you're thinking might get DPP? Obviously, we've talked a little bit about like players moving and rotating between positions.
A dreamland DPP would be Callum Mills. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to play enough behind the ball for that to happen. But like, just he's pure. He's in my team at the moment. I love the video on Callum Mills the other day because he's absolutely got the ceiling to rival any player in the comp. But does he do it? Is he going to be able to do it consistently enough with the role that he currently has, and how much does he get thrown behind? Like, is Sydney a better team or a worse team? So a lot of people would say that Sydney actually regresses this year. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'm kind of more of the Sydney bandwagon. I think they're an absolute fantastic team and can only get better. But a lot of people are predicting Sydney actually, even I've seen people drop them out of the 8. I don't know who would ever do that. But yeah, I know, right? So as people adjust to the way that they play, does that mean that he's going to drop behind the ball more? How often does that happen? Is it a lot in game? Are we looking at whole quarters where he drops back instead of just going back for 5-10 minutes? That would be good. I mean, it'd be great to get him as a DPP selection, but I'm not sure. Outside of that, I mean, not a midfielder, but obviously Max Gawn's probably the one that you look at and go, if he gets double DPP, he probably, if it's defense or forward, he's probably he's a good shout to be in someone's team, right? Like, if he gets a forward DPP, he has to be there. And I actually think I like the idea that they had early in the season of him, like defensive ruckman versus Grundy, the attacking ruckman, and him being behind the ball. That would be awesome in practice, because having a DPP Max Gawn at halfback in your backline of Supercoach would be awesome. But yeah, those are the two I'd like to see, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Gawn will probably get some sort of DPP. I don't think it would be defense. I think it's probably going to be forward, and I think they're going to exchange forward.
I'd love him to get defense and just like make things really. I love when Supercoach kind of has these conundrums where it makes the game really awkward. Just kind of adds that extra level of, hey, do I bring in Sinclair, Doherty, all these players, or do I go for a Max Gawn? Like, is there going to be an opportunity when I can do like a DPP swing at some point with like some random 102K player from the mid-season draft to be able to do a swing? I had Petrarca booked in as someone who I think is actually going to get it. Maybe even like probably before round 12, maybe even round 6. I just think they're going to be rotating a lot, and they really love his pressure up forward. I think a lot of these midfielders, they'll play high half forward, and if they're still in the forward 50, they still count. So
exactly right. Yeah.
All of these players.
And look, he's obviously got a huge ceiling on him too. So one that you want to keep an eye on. He can go on heaters too, where he goes on 5-6 games of absolutely killing it. I think he did the opposite last year in the middle of the year, which wasn't great for some. But it adds excitement. I love the changes mid-season, because we were tracking them like 3 rounds out. We're like, all right, he needs 5% more. Can we do it? Bevo, bring the magnets. Let's go. It adds a bit of excitement. Like, as content creators, like, we had lists of people and what percentages they were at. And I thought it was great. So, I mean, I think we were blessed last year. I don't think that happens again, where we have guys, legitimate, like, out of this world, top 10 forwards that all came from either round 6 or round 12. Like, we had 4? We had Libba, Parker, Bont, Bailey Smith. They were all
Bailey Smith didn't get it. That was the problem. He was like 0.5% off or something. Bailey Smith didn't get the DPP. So everyone picked him up. Everyone picked him up round 11, I think it was, hoping that he'd get DPP. Didn't
and
get
then
it.
He played like pure midfield or something, didn't he?
Yeah.
Classic
and then they were stuck with like a guy they had to trade out because they, he's not going to be top 8 in the position.
That is such a Bevo thing to do.
Count your eggs before they hatch.
Exactly. Look, someone.
Calculated risk, though, I guess.
Yeah, but you know someone who is guaranteed to get defensive DPP. Someone guaranteed to get, yeah, but someone guaranteed, Jay. And I present to you one conundrum.
I know what you're going to say already.
Jack Siebel. Oi, oi, oi. I think we've
Oh,
lost
he's
Joe.
actually said we've lost Joe. Oh no.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
I thought he was going to say Whitfield.
Maybe
so-
it will be Whitfield. I thought it was bringing out the North Melbourne connection there.
Well, I've got Zeeble in my team. I don't know why you wouldn't. Do you have Zeeble in your team?
No chance. No chance.
No?
He's not there.
Tell me why.
at
Talk
all.
me off that cliff.
For one thing, it's not 2021. When the game style is not chip kick along the back line to actually, to win the ball and to move the ball up the field anymore. It's very much kind of how a Collingwood or a Richmond type or even Geelong are, where they just get the ball and they shoot it up as fast as they can along the wings with those kind of players. I don't think he's the type of player he was 2 years ago either. And also our backline itself has got a lot stronger. So 2 years ago, we didn't have the kids. We didn't have the talent to take those halfback positions and actually run with it. Whereas, back in the day, Hall and Zeeble were the two guys because they had no one else. We've delisted half the back line in like 2 years because the talent just wasn't there. Whereas now it is. He took limited kickouts in the game. I think he had like 3 or 4 and that was it. In the intra-club game. We'll see, see what happens tomorrow, that kind of thing. But I just think there's a lot more avenue of passage there. And it seemed like you watch like a Richmond or a Geelong and they'll set up the back line so they can suffocate the ball forward. And that seemed to be a bit like what he was doing in the game. People say, oh, he was out of position, whatever. But Joe and I were watching it and he was legitimately pushed up almost to the midfield, letting someone else shoot the ball forward and he'd be the one to try and defend if the ball was coming back. So the role just it's not the same. I think they'd rather have someone else there. I mean, Luke McDonald took almost every kick out that game. Just a big wait and see. I think the risk is...
It is a wait and see for me. Yeah. I think there's a lot to play out. But I don't think he averages 107.
No.
But he does have... I mean, the thing I love about it is it's got keeper potential. Like, there is a chance... Because I think... who knows when Hall's going to get injured again? He's currently injured and he's not playing these couple of games. I keep saying he's 1 quarter away from missing the next 4 to 8 weeks. But he's still they're still going to need someone as that intercepting defender. They've obviously got 2 guys that are good at that in Buckets and Logue. Yeah. But they obviously probably need to play a little bit more accountable. Whereas I think that they want someone in that middle. Is Aiden Core that guy? I'm not sure. I don't know. There's a lot to play out in that back line. I like the pick at the moment, but only probably because of there really is a lack of mid-pricer options in the forward line. Yeah. If it's not him, then what, Millerer? I don't love that pick without any kickouts. If he's not getting any, then that's a big red flag. Fife, I'm not interested in at all. I was interested in Taron Thomas for a while, but I don't even know what's going on there. That's about it, So, I don't know. It's a strange one.
I'm a big feeling of Zeeble where I have a gut feeling, and he kind of slowed down a lot last year, but I have a feeling that he's let go of the captaincy so the club's not forced to play him every week, because there will be times when he's not, when he misses games or plays off a bench and that kind of thing. So taking that away, having that responsibility of not having to play your captain every week, it definitely adds something to that. Wait and see, like you say, but I just personally think the back line's got a bit better. We'll see tomorrow at least.
Yeah. I wish I wasn't working tomorrow. Tomorrow, I said that tomorrow should be a public holiday for all of us super coaches. That would be fun. Because there's 7 games tomorrow or something? Or 6 games?
Bonkers. There's a few on, I think there's a couple on Saturday, but there's so many
they're all tomorrow. They're all
tomorrow,
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah, they're all tomorrow. And they start at 10 a.m.
Day off, that's it.
I think I got the black lung.
I was telling Swizz we should do a watch along for the Richmond game, and he's like, "Oh, I can't. Nice. I've got to go into work at 1." I'm like, "No, you don't. Not
How much
tomorrow.
work is going to be done tomorrow?
No.
He'll be taking people to the game. So Swizz is a train driver on the Lilydale line
Okay.
in Victoria there. So yeah, he sees the faithful going into the G every day, and then just sheds a tear when he can't go. But he because I think it's shift work. Obviously, he just changes shifts around the Richmond games to make sure that he's all good. So yeah, it works well for him.
Yeah.
Noise.
I don't know what's happening.
We got Joe back.
Joe, are you back?
Very nice. Yeah, I think so. Can you see me? Hear me?
Yeah. I can see you in here. Yeah. We're back.
I guess we're slowly wrapping up. Not yet, but slowly. A lot of our content this year has been directed towards kind of the newer people. I know we spoke at the start about getting more people involved, that kind of thing. Do you have kind of 2 rules, maybe, or 2 pieces of advice that you can give newer people? Things that you've been playing for a long time, that kind of thing that you could share.
Yeah, definitely. So I think if you're brand new to Supercoach, just have fun with it for a year. It's really, really, really difficult to jump in and be successful at something you don't know how the scoring works. I mean, I don't think my head's all around the scoring. I actually had an idea yesterday. I'm like, why do we cap Supercoach scoring at 3,300 per game? Now, trying to explain that to someone and trying to explain how scaling supposedly is supposed to work is just an absolute nightmare. So try not to overanalyze that. Just understand that it's an impact related, I guess, is what you could say. And just try to have fun with it. Try to find what works and what players work. What roles work in this game as opposed to other games. So obviously the biggest difference between Supercoach and everything else is impact and effectiveness.
Yep.
So basically it's half backs, midfielders, and rucks have the most impact on the game. Forwards obviously score the goals, but they don't touch the ball enough to be able to be really good scorers in this format. So understanding that and understanding what players are better at Supercoach than other formats is probably what I would say you do your first year. Learning, rules like when to trade and how to trade, how to make cash, using it like a stock market. A lot of times, for first starts, they'll fill out their team with a bunch of mid-price guys and go, yeah, cool. And then have no rookies to make cash. They haven't even got the top-end guys because they've filled out their guys, all these average guys trying to make enough points. You make all your mistakes in that first year. Have some fun with it. You watch the games of football, understand why they got that score is how I would say to first-year players. I know a lot of people just sort of, so I'm trying to get my partner into Supercoach for the first time.
How's that working?
My theory is, and I'm sure you guys are the same. I love footy, but I used to only really watch Collingwood games. All right. I watched every single week and I'd only watch Collingwood games. And then I started fantasy football and now I watch like every game. Doesn't matter because I've got a vested interest in pretty much every game. And basically what I watch will depend on how many players I've got in that specific game so that I can just specifically watch those guys. So be prepared for that. If you're a new player and you want to get involved in football, it's great to have that as it's not gambling. You don't have a vested interest in like monetary interest into it or anything like that, but you've got a vested interest with your players and it's a great way to get involved with AFL as well as a fantasy game. So if you're trying to get your partner involved or your friend involved who isn't necessarily all the way in football, but you want them to be, or they want to be, but they just don't really understand it enough or don't watch it enough, just have fun that first year and pick players that you're going to want to watch games of. I suppose those are probably my 2. I know they're not like elite. You're going to be amazing because of this, but after that first year, when now you understand, how trading works, buy low, sell high, what structure means, what types of players you're looking for to put into your team, looking at rookies well in advance of the preseason, not just the night before. I mean, if you want a cookie cutter squad, I mean, the easiest way to do it is really just you go to the night before the season starts and just pick all the highest owned players, and then you've got a squad. Like, cool.
Yeah, 100%.
But you're not going to understand why, and that's that's what I'm trying to coach into. Have fun that first year, just understand the why, and then you'll be much better for it the subsequent years.
Yeah, it's hard watching Josh Bruce though when you've got him in your team and then he kicks 10 against your team, and it's just like, nah, sorry, I just can't do it.
It's for the Supercoach, though. It's for the Supercoach.
But it's also good when you've got a bet riding on it. It's also good when you have a bet riding on it between mates, you know? Oh, is Dylan Moore going to average this much? Yeah, let's put a bet on it. This makes great, great friendly competition.
Yeah, and look, as long as there's banter, we support banter. Like, that's between mates, just something lighthearted. Like we had me and Ben had a great bet last year. Basically, I bet him that Hewitt would out average Cripps. And it went down to the last possession in the last game of the round, where Cripps tried to take it from a contest. If he gets the handball away, I lose. But instead, he ran straight into Josh Dacos, and he got called holding the ball. And he went backwards, and I won. And I was like, there's a whole season of content on that one thing. So, look, I mean, I was obviously lighthearted. We try to have those between us mates every year. And for us, it's all about, like, it's at $50 or whatever, but it's not really. We generally just buy each other a bottle of spirits, and then we have our Supercoach drafts. We'll go over to each other's house and we'll share that bottle. So it's not like it's more for bragging rights than it is about the money, because we end up both enjoying it anyway. So always fun to have that sort of thing riding on it, and just the banter is just so worth it.
Yeah, I know Joe and I have had a couple of things like that in the past as well, because I don't really know anyone that watches football. All the people that I watch come from the community here. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's been good kind of developing friends and things like that way.
I absolutely have made so many friends. I mean, Swizz is a guy that is now our podcast creator as well. And we met him after me and Ben started, just through the groups that we made in the Facebook pages. He would be commenting on our stuff, and he'd DM us and say, I think this about this player, and it would turn out to be right. And really knowledgeable guy, and really successful super coacher. And we're like, look, we need a third, because after a while with two, it actually starts to be really hard if one person's sick, or you're unavailable, or you got the kids, or constantly recording all the time starts to be really hard. So having that third that you can sort of switch in and switch out if you need to, or at least still run two, because no one wants a podcast alone, really does help. And so, but I've met heaps of people, like, in real life, that I've actually just met through the Supercoach community. I've made lifelong friends. And it's a great place, but it's a great space to meet people who are like-minded, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Awesome. Well, if you're not going to delve more into whether or not the Dylan Moore bet is on, because I really want to.
It is on. It's on.
It's on. It's on. Okay.
It's on.
Man.
It's absolutely on.
Is it? What were the terms again? What do you say?
So there's two current bets on Dylan Moore, and so the first one is, so I'm pretty sure, like, Ben got caught off guard here. So Ben didn't do his research properly, and he got caught. And you could tell straight away, he's like, I immediately regret the decision, because sometimes, a lot of the time while we're recording, we have a really good general knowledge of football, and then we use stats to back it up. But we'll have a spreadsheet open while we're actually recording, so that we can reference those stats while we're actually going through. So sometimes we've got pre-research stats available to us that we've done ourselves. Other times we sort of just wing it. And he made the mistake of winging it, and he didn't look into Dylan Moore really well enough at all, and it's really backfired. So he made a bet thinking that Chad Wingard would get a lot of centre bounce attendances this year, which isn't going to happen, by the way.
No, it's not.
And he's going to increase his average. And so he bet that Wingard would out-average Dylan Moore. That's not going to happen. I know. That's not going to happen. So that's the first one.
That's free money.
That's free money. So then I made a subsequent bet to that afterwards. That was, okay, well, I think that he'll average over 100 if he gets more than 50% CBAs. Now, I do think that he will do that if he gets over 50% CBAs, but I don't think he's going to get that amount of time in there, unfortunately. So, so that's a sort of contingent bet that, if X happens, then I'll win. But we'll see what happens there.
Hey, I think
Wait,
you're
you
onto a
actually
winner
agreed
there.
to that?
Yeah. He just doubled down.
Oh. That's why he barracks for Brisbane. He doubled down on the wrong decision. You can tell him. An Essendon supporter said that. Yes.
Absolutely. But it's all in fun. I got done a few years ago where I lost every single one of them. But we even do, we had some, we have a yearly one with Supercoach Elites as well. We usually do the top 10 positional pods. We've got to organize that soon sometime. But we always have, that banter ends up being, me and Ben both agree on something, and then they don't agree on something, and then it sort of starts off. So it's always a bit of fun, but love it.
Nice.
Any banter around the Whitfield pick potentially being live?
Honestly, I've put him in my team. The thing is, right, obviously being mid only, who are you taking out of your midfield to put Whitfield in? If he was a forward, I think he'd be in a lot of sides. But at this point, you can't really pick him till round 6, right?
If he was a defender, he'd probably be in even more. Any whiff of, hey, this guy's good. People are screaming for a 400k player who's doing quite well. Yeah,
with previous scoring history, right? So the problem with what we've got there, you've got a few decent guys that have the potential to all go, say, 105 plus. You got Dacos, you've got Young, you've got Ridley, you've got Redmond, all around that mark. Who's going to be the one to really take it and catapult it? What we'd like is a sure thing at that price, because no one wants to sort of have a fail pick at 500k, right? So, a Whitfield in the defense would be awesome, but I think by that stage he might be close to 600k, and then I don't know if you can justify bringing him in. So, we'll have
He's
to see
going to get
DPP
DPP round 6.
I know.
Of that, you can be sure.
One thing, same with, it could be said about Ash as well. So, he averaged, I think, close to 90 when he played off the halfback flank. So there's a potential that he could average quite well in that role too. So, look, everyone's going up at GWS and no one's going down. Didn't you read?
Yeah, jelly, bro. Everyone's on jelly now as well. There's a lot more jelly people than I thought.
I love the jelly pick, because I'm like, okay, I don't really have. Sometimes when you're rearranging your team, you're like, I don't quite have the 600k or 605k to get, say, a steal in there, but I do have enough to get jelly, and so I did a lot of research on jelly, but he only averaged 47% CBA, so that's only going up this year, right? So if he's getting 65% CBAs, he should shoot up to, say, that 114, 115 average that he's done 3 years prior. So he's not a bad pick. It's his body, right? Is his body going to be able to cope with that amount of midfield time? I don't know. But he's gone 21 games the last 2 seasons. So who knows?
Yeah.
Anything could happen. 2 years ago, I was predicting Josh Kelly to be the number 1 Supercoach player. So I don't know. Then Leon happened. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that's us for today. Before you head off, Chris, thanks very much for coming on. It's been really informative, and man, we just love the banter. So you're welcome back anytime.
Cheers.
Before we kind of go, do you want to let people know what you've got on, where they can find you, that kind of thing, what you've got coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pretty much on all the major podcast platforms. Supercoach Insider is obviously us. Our tag is at SC Insider 100 on all platforms. We actually, I don't know if you guys have had this problem, but when we started, we couldn't get Supercoach Insider just straight up. We couldn't get SC Insider. We couldn't get on every single platform. You could get one thing and not the other, and then we just changed it all to SC Insider 100, which is your general Supercoach good score. That's why we ended up choosing that. Yeah. YouTube is probably where we are growing our biggest audience at the moment. Podcast is still probably our most popular by far, but we're growing exponentially. In terms of viewership, in the last 2 years since we've been doing YouTube consistently, we've had over 300,000 streams on YouTube, and the podcast has brought in just about that over the 5-year period.
Yeah.
So YouTube just brings in a lot more viewers that don't necessarily, because of the algorithms and the way it recommends content to people that are already viewing that content, you get a lot more exposure and you build your brand a lot quicker on things like YouTube. So we're pushing that. And if you're into the TikTok thing, we are also on TikTok, which is, as I said, just going really, really well. And what I like about it is a little short content. We'll be rolling that out across the regular season with little snippets on a certain player or a certain trade-in target or a certain upgrade target that you want. You know, you get that 2-3 minute segment, bang, up to TikTok. And those segments are exploding when they're specific about like one player or one item. They're going crazy. So, recommend that. In terms of podcasts, we'll be running, we've got 4 podcasts left on our team analysis series. And then we'll be doing roundups of the preseason competitions. We'll do the top 10 pods with the elites crew as well. And then we'll just do the last before we do it is a team reveal. We'll all do that individually. And our Road to Round 1 series has been our most popular segments and series since we started Supercoach. So, yeah, it's been crazy.
Nice.
As you can see, guys, the content is flowing freely over there at Supercoach Insider. So please, guys, everybody, do your best. Jump over there. I know you all subbed there already. Don't you worry about that. But if you haven't somehow, you're one of those random few people that are subbed to us and not to them, hurry up and go over there and sub to them. They're doing a lot of good work, and as you can see, a lot of great banter.
Yeah, Joe's grandma. I know you sub to our channel, but go sub to Supercoach Insider. You know.
Actually,
It starts with
family
her
and
phone
for a second. Yeah, let me pull out her phone and start doing that. 2 seconds. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Chris, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been so much fun. I know my internet dropped out, but I still had a great time. My cheeks hurt now. Thank you.
We had a lot of fun at your expense. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's been great. All right, guys. Good stuff. That's our talk with Chris from Supercoach Insider. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. We've also got our Supercoach group where you guys can win some amazing prizes. We've got an AFL jersey, some tickets, and an AFL voucher up for grabs. Any final words, Joe?
Guys, here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you don't have to. Bye for now.